About a year ago, Joe Lieberman promised twice that he would never, ever become a lobbyist. That's well documented, that's on record, you could look it up yourself. Well, on Wednesday, Joe Lieberman became a lobbyist. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how politics works in the United States of America. According to a report from Politico, Lieberman registered to lobby on behalf of a Libyan politician. Now, the details as to why he's doing that, it's unclear right now. But if I had to guess, there's going to be some sort of arms deal involved. Whenever United States politicians get involved with politicians from Middle Eastern countries, it's always like with Egypt, oh, we're going to give you a $1.3 billion subsidy, essentially, that you give back to our defense contractors, and then they send you weapons, and you use that to repress your population. It's the same. It's a ruse. It's all about the military-industrial complex. It's all about business deals and disregarding morality and what is ethical and what is just, and only caring about the almighty dollar. So Lieberman's going to be lobbying on behalf of a Libyan politician. Now, technically, he's going to be a consultant or a strategist for a few years before he can admit that he's actually acting as a lobbyist. And the reason for that is that there are laws on the books against being a lobbyist right after you've been in Congress, because then the corruption is just too brazen and too in your face that even people who don't follow these things would go, yeah, there's something wrong with that. But as they always do, the politicians will lobby anyway and just call it a different name, and they exploit all these different loopholes and they get away with it. But listen to this, because this isn't just a problem about Joe Lieberman. This is a problem with all of Congress and all of politics in the United States. So this is from a report not too long ago. Quote, since the November elections, at least 22 members of the last Congress took jobs with lobbying firms. Since 1998, a total of 338 former members of Congress have worked as lobbyists or joined such firms for at least some of the time since leaving office. So those are some pretty damning numbers. 338 former members of Congress since 1998. Okay, we can call that the group of sellouts. But it gets even worse. In 1974, 3% of retiring congressmen became lobbyists. So tiny number, 3%, nothing, right? Today, 50% do. 50%. That's a damning statistic if I ever heard one in my life. You know, I'm at the point right now where I look at Congress similar to like I look at the military in this respect. So when you join the military, they tell you, hey, we're just letting you know certain constitutional rights that you have, kind of don't have them fully anymore. Certain things you are sacrificing to protect your country, and you have to listen to the hierarchy and the chain of command, and you don't have all the freedoms that somebody who is a citizen gets. Now, when you come back and you're no longer in the military, of course you get all those protections. But while you're away, we need this hierarchic system in order for things to function properly and smoothly. And in the past, I might have said, well, no, the same thing doesn't apply to Congress. Today, I think it does. And what I mean by that is, I'm at the point where I think if you sign up for Congress, if you become a congressperson, if you want to be a public servant, you're a public servant. And you cannot, after you're done doing that, go to the private sector and sell out and sell out. And there was another amazing statistic. You know how big of a pay increase Congress people get when they're out of there and they go to the private sector and work as lobbyists? Over 1,000%. Now, here is why this is such a big problem, because some people might not understand, they might not connect the dots. The problem is when these politicians are in office, they listen to all the lobbyists. And when the lobbyists say, hey, why don't you give my company a couple $1 billion worth of subsidies and we will thank you later, and then they get the job later, this is the problem. The problem is that you have lawmakers who will look at people in their own states and will say, oh, hey, look at that. There's a lot of people who don't have enough food to eat. There's a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck. There are a lot of people who have inadequate health care. There are a lot of people struggling. Now you, as your job as a congressperson, you're supposed to represent them and make their lives better. That's your only job. But what do these guys do? This is the problem with the corruption. Instead of taking their limited resources and focusing it on something like that, taking care of the people in their state and their constituents, they'll give that billion-dollar subsidy to ExxonMobil or to whatever other corporation, and then when they get out of power and out of office, they get a job and get millions of dollars. It's essentially paying them back for all the corruption and all the bribery and all the ways that they took care of the corporations when they were in power. See, this is a government of, by, and for the rich, of, by, and for the corporations. And not only does the Joe Lieberman story prove that, also the statistics and the numbers and the studies show that. It's time to put an end to this.